very warm welcome to my channel, War Chronicle. It's my goal to make history come alive for you, but what does that mean? Well, it means air-to-air missiles. That is because these weapons don't have legs or wings to walk or fly on their own. They must be carried aloft and then launched by aircraft, hence air-to-air. This technology has changed how wars are fought. This missile was called the LFG-1. Now, LFG stands for Luftwaffenfaust, which translates to air defense weapon. So the launch platform had to be very close to the target for the missile to hit its intended target. These missiles were mounted on land, and they were mobile, but they were heavy and required 6 soldiers to assemble them. Their range was between 164 and 328 feet. The missile fired from these batteries did not explode on impact. This missile weighed 1,500 pounds and had a top-over attack capability, which meant that the missile would approach its target from above, where the armor was thinnest. The arms race intensified, and each side wanted to destroy the other before they could press the button. This led to a massive increase in funding for military research and development, and many new technologies emerged, including hypersonic weapons, stealth aircraft, and of course, improved air-to-air missiles. This missile was deployed in the Pacific against Japanese aircraft and proved to be effective. This missile was faster than sound and could reach speeds of up to Mach 2.2. It was an air-to-air missile with a semi-active radar homing system, and it had a range of 93 miles. This missile had an active array radar system and could reach a top speed of 4,500 miles per hour. It also had a range of 70 miles. The AMRAAM was specifically designed to engage multiple aircraft at once. Later, the SA-24 was upgraded to the SA-25 with an active array radar system, and it had a range of 186 miles. One such missile was the AIM-120M RAM, which replaced the older Sidewinder missiles. This missile was called the AIM-9X Sidewinder, and it had a range of 35 miles and a top speed of 4,500 miles per hour. The AIM-120 was smaller and lighter, and it was also cheaper to produce. It also had a longer range and faster speed. For example, the MBDA Meteor missile, which is used by European fighter aircraft, such as the Eurofighter Typhoon and the Saab Gripen. The Meteor has a range of 100 miles and can reach a top speed of Mach 4. Another example is the Israeli Python 5 missile, which is used by the IDF on their F-16 and F-15 fighter jets. The Python 5 has a range of 110 miles and can reach a top speed of Mach 4.5. In fact, the AIM-120 can carry 2 Sidewinders worth of explosives. The AIM-120 has been widely exported and is now used by more than 40 countries. This missile could be launched from fighter aircraft such as the MiG-21 and Su-27. This missile had a range of 31 miles and a warhead of 110 pounds. The U.S. did not have a missile to counter this threat, so they bought some time by developing the Hughes A-1G, a radar-guided missile with a range of 37 miles. This missile was supersonic and could travel at a maximum speed of 1,500 miles per hour. The A-1G was followed by the AIM-47 Falcon and the A-1B Falcon, both of which were radar-guided missiles. They are now an essential part of modern warfare, and they continue to evolve with new technologies. Instead, the warhead would detach from the body and then explode. These missiles had an infrared seeker and could lock onto the hot exhaust of enemy aircraft. It had a range of 25 miles and could reach speeds of up to Mach 2. The Sidewinder proved to be a game-changer and was widely used in the Vietnam War. But unfortunately, these missiles were too slow and could not be used against the nimble German Fokker D-7 planes. Also, there was no tracking system. This led to the development of the AIM-50, 60, and 70 series. These missiles were bigger and heavier, and they had a larger warhead. They also had a special propulsion system that allowed them to accelerate to high speeds quickly. The AIM-50 had a range of 75 miles and could reach a top speed of 1,500 miles per hour. This missile was deployed in the Middle East, and many Arab nations acquired it through the U.S. The operator could only fire at an enemy aircraft when it was in sight. So these remained largely ineffective. By the end of World War I, the air defense batteries were gone, and the LG-1 would also become obsolete. The best way to use them was to drop them on enemy aircraft as they took off. His missile weighed only 22 pounds, and it was made to be dropped from a Gotha bomber. It had a hollow charge warhead that exploded with about 33 pounds of TNT. In fact, the rapid advancement of aircraft rendered all previous weapons useless. The Germans were the first to develop a radar-guided missile in the form of the Fritz X bomb, which was used in 1941. The Fritz X was a massive missile weighing in at almost 5 tons. It was huge. It had a radio proximity fuse that would trigger the detonation when the bomb was near its target. It was able to hit moving targets with great accuracy. And you know how accurate? Its accuracy was up to 33 feet, which is phenomenal for a missile of its size. The Fritz X was initially deployed in the Battle of Taranto, where 3 Italian airfields were attacked and 4 British ships were sunk. But the bad news is that the Fritz X was a massive missile and required a crew of 10 men to load it onto the aircraft. Also, it had to be released from low altitude, and it needed a lot of time for acceleration. So it was easy prey for the anti-aircraft guns. Also, the Fritz X had limited range, and it could not be used beyond 25 miles from the launch point. So the Germans improved upon this design and created something better. And this gave birth to the world's first operational infrared homing air to air missile, the first operational infrared homing air to air missile, the V1, also known as the Vogel-Tungswaffe. 1. It was an unguided missile with a solid fuel rocket motor, and it was powered by a pulse jet engine. It was lighter than its predecessor, and it was easier to deploy. And most importantly, it had a range of 31 miles, which increased its effectiveness. The V1 missile was tested in 1943, and it was used in combat in 1944. It was primarily used to attack Allied airfields, and it was effective against bombers, but not so much against fighter planes. This missile was essentially a kamikaze bomber with no pilot. It would reach its target and detonate. The missile had a range of less than 100 meters. This missile was designed to attack the lightly armored bombers and not the fighter planes. So let's see how this came into being and how it evolved over time. Today we're going to discuss about those who died from falling from the sky killers. His name was Marcus Tullius Cicero, and he proposed this idea around 70 BC. He proposed a self-propelled missile which could be shot from catapults and could move through the air like a javelin but with much greater speed. Unfortunately, this would remain just a theory as it was too advanced for its time. The first person to conceive the idea of a missile was not an engineer or scientist, but a Roman philosopher, and the British engineer, Frederick William Lanchester, came up with a more practical design for an aerial missile that could be dropped from a balloon and detonate when it collides with its target. He called this the projectile of guidance and designed it to be used against enemy balloons. This missile had fins for steering and a detonator at its nose. Although his design did not go into production, his concept was the foundation for future developments. But fast forward to 1876, 194 years later than in 1915. The first air-to-air missile ever, the world's first air-to-air missile, was developed in Austria-Hungary. During World War I now, the problem with this missile was that it lacked a propulsion system. It was purely a bomb with fins, and it just fell towards the earth. In 1916, Russia deployed the world's first air-to-air missile battery. World War II saw many advances in military aviation, and the development of jet fighters and bombers led to the need for new weapons. In 1944, the United States entered the fray with the first radar-guided air-to-air missile. It was called the SCR-584, or the AIM-26, after World War II. Nuclear weapons became a part of warfare, and the threat of mutually assured destruction hung like a sword of Damocles on humanity's head. The Soviets were the first to develop a missile with a ramjet engine. It was called the Guideline Missile, or the AA-2 missile. The 1960s saw the development of heat-seeking missiles, and the first American missile to be deployed was the Sidewinder, or the AIM-9 series. By the 1970s, the U.S. military wanted a missile with a longer range and faster speed. In the early 1980s, the Soviet Union deployed the SA-24 missile. In the late 1980s, the U.S. developed a new missile called the AMRAAM. In the 1990s, the focus shifted to developing smaller, cheaper, and more maneuverable missiles. The U.S. then developed a new missile with an infrared sensor that could lock onto the heat signature of enemy aircraft, even in bad weather. In the 21st century, the focus is on developing missiles with even greater range and speed. So air-to-air missiles have come a long way since the days of Fritz X bomb. So there you have it, the evolution of air-to-air missiles.